All right, let's take care of the weather card. You can go ahead and download this. I have already done so. Um, right here. Then go into weather card component, and we're going to need to, of course, import that image. And inside here, I'm going to use a section and give it a BEM appropriate class. It's going to be a block because that just makes sense. Inside here, we're going to need an image tag. Now, you could probably just manage with a background image, but I want to show you how to do it this way. We'll need a CSS file. And to make it a little easier for us to test out the CSS in the browser, I'm just going to create these um, empty bits. Now, if we go back to our project, what we see is, let's reframe this, make it bigger. It looks all right to begin with, but it never gets any smaller. So it's going to completely break our project, even at large desktop sizes that are a little bit less than 1440. So we're going to take care of that now. We're not going to worry much about responsive design, but we don't want to handicap ourselves later by setting this up wrong. So there's a few things that we could look at doing here. The first thing that I might try is to set the width to 100%, because I happen to know, and it is a little bit confusing, but um, if you set width 100% on an image, that will allow it to get smaller, which is kind of the opposite of what you. Oh, that's the wrong element. The opposite of how it works in most other cases. But with an image, that lets it get smaller. And that's an improvement, right? But do you see how it's also getting less tall, which is not what we would want? So you might consider adding height. It's 80 pixels if you look in the Figma. And that does not seem to have resolved it either. Um, So here's the weather card, but we see it's 80 pixels, but the image is getting smaller. So then, okay, what can we do to prevent that? Well, you may recall this object fit property that has a cover value that you would think would have made it cover the entire section, but it did not. So that's I was expecting it to. Height 100%. There, okay. Well, so height 100%. And now it fits, but it's clearly even worse, right? This is where a property that I don't think you've seen before, object position, can come into play. Object position, we can position it right top, and that will ensure that the top right of the image, and the top part is actually kind of irrelevant here. Would it work to just do right? Yeah, it looks like it might work just to do right. The right side would always be present. Um, would always be kind of pinned to the right side of the image element. And so now it it behaves the way we would want. Like this horizontal scroll is being caused by this element. which is irrelevant. We'll resolve that eventually. The only remaining issue is the lack of rounded edges. Try to remember how that was done and fix it. If you're struggling, refer back to how you implemented the card images, because you probably had to do something very similar here to in your spots project to handle this. I'm not thinking of any other clear cases, but that's where you could look back to. And if you're still struggling, go find the border radius lesson all the way back in Sprint 0, and we explain it there. Okay, so there's really only one way that I know of to do this, and that would be you give overflow hidden to mm, overflow hidden and border radius, what is it, like 10 pixels? We can basically, it's the border radius and the overflow hidden that does it, and we could check the Figma for the precise values. Sometimes it's not immediately clear where to get the values from. That one I can't even click into. Looking for something that says radius. There we go. Radius 12 pixels. When in doubt, double click some more. Click and double click and triple click. Radius 12 pixels. So this should be 12, and then that's good. So I'm going to copy these. What were these styles? Width 100%, height 100%, which in my previous implementation was not necessary, so I don't know what's going on with that. Object fit cover, object fit, object position right, and I am going to do right top. Yeah, all right, great. There's one thing missing from this component, and that is the text and a bit of style, to put space between here, but that I can leave for you. For this, there's a bit of a trick. Try and figure it out. Try and figure out how you can manage that. It's not really that difficult. It's something that you have done multiple times. Um, a certain way of positioning an element. So give it a try, then unpause the video. Okay, so the tricky part, sort of, is you can't do this. You can't put the text inside the image element. Oops, I'm messing up. Because that's just not how image elements work. Image elements are self-closing. They do not accept children. So we need to put this, we can just do a paragraph. Call it WeatherCard _temp. And so for the degree sign, that's what it's supposed to be, right? It's 75° F. You should use the HTML escape code, which is this, ampersand deg semicolon, and you can always just look that up. It's called an HTML entity F. No space after the temperature. Okay, so like that. Now, if we go back to Chrome, we see that oh, interesting. Okay, so I was expecting to see this immediately below here, but it's actually being obscured in a somewhat surprising way. It's the underneath this element, and I don't know why it's not why it's underneath. Well, I guess that's just how it works. So what we would need to do is you can use absolute positioning to position it inside this section here. So we could do position absolute. And you see that actually pulled it out and put it right there. Then, well, let's see what happens if we do bottom 0, left 0. Bottom 0, left 0. Where did it go now? Ah, it went all the way down there, right? Do you remember what to do to fix that? If you don't remember what to do to fix that, try referring back to how you resolved it in when you implemented the delete button on the cards. Um, there's a specific property that you have to give to the parent class to make this work. Um, and that property would be position relative. You have to give it to the parent class, and that puts the temperature where it should be. Um, so to position it correctly, I would first, you want to get rid of those margins because they're going to mess things up. And then what would we want to do? 50%? What did I just do? 50% would be the bottom. 50%. So that's going to be too much. It would have to be 50% minus half the height of this element. So it would be like 32 pixels. I'm just going to try that. 32 pixels. That's pretty close. We'll go with that. It might have to get adjusted depending on what the actual font size is. And my first inclination is to use margin to bump it from the left, but we are using absolute position, so we should maybe just use absolute position. Use positioning, so 16 pixels. And yeah, actually, it'll be so you can see the values here. Once if we change, let's see, font size 36, line height 40, and then it'll be 20 on the top and bottom. Okay, let's try that. So this is temp bottom 20, left 16, font size 36, and then instead of line height 40, I'm going to do line height 1.1 because that's equivalent and it is better to do it that way. And we just need to put position relative here. And try and figure out what the problem is there. It's something that I've already mentioned, but I only did it in the browser, not in VS Code yet. If you're not sure, select it with the element inspector and it should be clear from that. And okay, so interesting. I stand corrected. It will not be very clear. Let's refresh the page. So what I was expecting was for the issue to be these margins that need to be reset. And maybe that is the case. Margin 0. Ah, yeah. So that is what I was expecting. There was and maybe you even saw it like that. I'm not sure, but there was a weird artifact where it didn't refresh the page properly for me. Changed the visible styles, but didn't change the styles here, basically. So there, like that's pretty good. All right. Weather card component can be considered done, although for all of these, there are details left that you need to finish the styling for. Okay. Next, we will start working on the item card component.